Hello, I'm Robin Sealark and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the first of a series of 4 waves I'll be doing in a 4-part video series, and this is today's wave. It's the first I made in the series, so I felt, why not do it chronologically? We're going to go through the production of this, and if you're interested in the original or in a reproduction, I'm going to be offering 25 limited edition prints, the first time I've ever done that. So if you want an archival giclée print at full size of this painting, check it out at robinsealark.com, and I hope you enjoy this first of a series of 4 videos as I progress back into wave painting. Here goes nothing. Let's dive on in. Y'all, I have been sitting on this. I have 4 waves, each are 16 by 20 inches on canvas board, and this is the very first one that I made from the series that I'm finally sharing with you. I began this series in April. I know, it's been a while, but a lot has happened in the last number of months, and I'm gonna get into the whole process and finally share some things with you. So welcome to the video, thank you for watching, and let's get into it. As you can see, this began off camera. I did so by doing a basic coat of a dark blue-green color to get a base color, and then I decided to do projections for establishing the base of these paintings. What does that mean? I have a video of it in one of the later waves that I made, but just so you can hear what the process was like. I have a projector. I created these references. I have a bunch of references that I've taken of the water locally, and I projected it onto my canvas board and made light blue markations for this one. So I had that background color, and then I just established the general shape and layout of the composition with these little tick marks. It is a fair amount progressed, but there's a lot that had to happen past that initial phase, and it's a little bit complicated working that way, I'll say. You're kind of in the dark other than the light that's being projected. You don't have any sort of accurate color read with what you're doing since there is such little light in the room, and it really does depend on these final stages to actually finesse it and develop the colors and make the texture what you want it to be. But why did I do this? Why have I chosen this path? I've made a lot of waves over the last 10, 12 years or so, but I really most recently want to dive into them specifically again as a subject matter. I started out my career doing water, and around January I went to a virtual artist talk by Catherine Burns, who is a water painter that I really admire, and I got re-inspired to dive back into the water. I'm living in New York again, which is where I was when I first started painting waves at the beginning of my career, and it's very me. It's very homey, reminiscent of how I was brought up, my family, my dad's values and interests, and it makes me feel connected. And it's also just this beautiful, complex, ever-changing subject that I'll never get tired of. But using the projector was a way for me to try to approach this in a way I haven't done before. Obviously, there's a million ways to approach painting. You can do it in layers and stages where you're just blocking in colors and then leveling up the way you refine your details. That's the way I most commonly like to work. And then there's something like this. So I'm using acrylic for the base layer of all of these paintings. Right now I'm still working with my acrylics, and I'm trying to get the shape of things down and developed, get some of the colors down and developed, and then I'm going to move into finessing it a little bit more later with oil paints. I want these paintings that I'm working on to teach me, to evolve the way I work with waves, to level up the amount of detail and refinement, to push me to try things and investigate parts of the water that normally I might not be looking at. And this series, while they're all different from each other, each wave is a general color scheme and they all have their own character. Each of them is trying to push me to do something a little bit more intense and intent than what I've done with waves in the past. And I'm not sure if that's something you'll be able to see whether you know my work previously or not, but it is something I'm personally working on. And sometimes learning is this kind of abstract thing, right? It's hard to put into words or really show what you're doing until it has had more time to breathe and develop. And that's what I want to happen with this series, with my work going forward. I want my way waves to be a focus. I want my fine art to be my focus. And I feel like in order to take myself seriously as an artist, to level up the quality of the work I'm doing, what places I'm seeing it in, I think I need my portfolio to be stronger. I need to strengthen my skill level. And by having this really intricate underpainting that I'm developing with the projector, it gave me a lot more spaces where I'm really looking at the forms of the wave and how I can bring interest and realism into each section of the painting. So this, for instance, has a major central waveform, but then there's smaller waveforms, and within each smaller waveform there's even smaller waveforms and rippling water, reflections. One thing that I've learned throughout the process of these is to not take for granted the importance of the actual forms, the three-dimensional quality of the water that I'm working on, because how you paint it, where you put in shadows, how you develop that detail is going to play a lot into what the viewer is able to read of the image and how complex the actual acting waves are. It's not just about creating shapes and color, it's about being referential to the movement and the depth and the gravity, the weight of the water. Water does so many incredible things. When I'm out on a kayak or swimming, I look at it, and every place you look, there's different movement, form happening, and it's changing constantly. It's changing based on the actual movement of the water, what's underneath it, what's going through it, and then what's happening with the wind, what's happening with the boats, what's happening in the sky that day, how the light is reflecting and what colors it's creating. I went swimming the other day and it was a little overcast, and the forms of waves had this fleshy tone. I was swimming alone and I kept getting scared out of the corner of my eye like there was mer people swimming around me or something. Okay, so I did a little bit of glazing on this. I am working in oil paints at this point. And what glazing means is taking a thinned out paint and covering your image so that the colors show through from underneath, but they're getting a top color influencing them. So I thought it was a little bit too blue. I wanted it to be a little more yellow-green, so I added a glaze that made it look a little more yellow-green. And because getting your light, your color, your contrasts right to make it look accurate is also important to this, I do push the colors around quite a bit here and there. I know that there's not a huge color range in this. We're working all within a family of white, blues, and greens, but even so, there's such a huge variety within those. You can get blue paint that's really green based, or you can get blue paint that's more purple based. So you have to think about which actual paints that you're working with and how they mix in with other colors, and then just consider what is looking accurate to reality, what's looking accurate to what you want the image to look like. I'm obviously really focused on increasing my realism and doing highly rendered images of the water, but art is such a flexible and subjective thing. If you want to push something to look a certain way, if you want to push the viewer to read the image with certain colors, those are just personal decisions you have to make. For a while, I was pushing it a little bit more green. There are times I felt that I was pushing it too far into an aqua space. I really wanted this to be a blue image. I have color themes for each of my 4 wave paintings. One I'm more focused on blue, one I'm more focused on yellow, one on an aquamarine color, which is a little more skewed green, and then the final one more focused on a pink sunsetty color. So this I wanted to have blue. It has a mixture of different blues you can see at this point. There's blue-green, there's a purple blue, there's light blues. And another thing I really wanted to get right was the crashing part of this wave. I struggled a couple times. It's in part probably to do with the projection, but I didn't want these to feel too dotted, disjointed, or sketchy. I wanted the spray of the ocean to be realistic and read as little dots of water without it feeling polka dotted. So it was important to me that I had a combination of the wave water moving, pulling that white water, but also having the dotting not just feel like a pattern, having it feel more lifelike, like this water is bursting, crumbling, folding. So I got a little bit more of that just by pulling some of the blue greens through the white water area area more rather than having it just all be polka dotted. A few areas I really like of this painting: it has the long strands of the waves pulling from left to right. It has in the foreground that area of motion where the light is hitting it and it's rippling in front of the white crash in an interesting pattern, which is kind of different from the rest of the painting. And then the main subject of the wave in the white crashing area in the center. I feel like each of these give a really strong component to the wave, and this is how the final piece came out. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you'll stick around for the rest of the series. You can subscribe to this channel to make sure you don't miss out on the rest of these waves in production. I'll be doing time lapses and limited edition releases of all of them. So check out robinsealark.com, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.